Now, it wasn't long after Harry signed for United that he and his teammates were playing a European Cup game in the old Yugoslavia. They drew 3-3 to take them to the semi-finals. But it was the journey home on the 6th of February in 1958 that left a scar on the rest of his life. The plane carrying the United team and civilians crashed on takeoff on a snowy runway in Munich. Of the 44 people on board, 23 people died, including 8 of the Manchester United team. But Harry survived. And despite the captain telling him to run away, the plane was about to explode. Harry went back selflessly into the carnage and the horror inside the burning wreckage, and he saved many teammates, including Dennis Viollet, Northern Ireland's Jackie Blanchflower. He saved who he called the boss, Matt Busby, and Sir Bobby Charlton, who would go on to captain England to the 1966 World Cup. Harry also saved a pregnant Yugoslavian woman and her 22-month-old baby daughter. Now, incredibly, less than 2 weeks after the crash, just 13 days, Harry was back playing for Manchester United with just one of his former teammates. It was an FA Cup match. They won, and United would go on to reach the final that year. Now, what happened at Munich was always a mental torment for Harry. He had a constant battle against grief and guilt. But as he told me, it was getting back to football that saved his sanity. He used the game to heal his scars. Now, as Harry continued his career at Manchester United and helped rebuild the club, tragedy was again to befall a few years later. At the age of just 26, his wife Mavis passed away with breast cancer. Now, Munich was extremely harrowing for Harry. But it was Mavis's death that was the core of the pain that he suffered. It was his darkest hour. And obviously this had a huge impact on his life, but again, he turned to football. But what saved Harry this time was not football, but a meeting with Coleraine Maunders, a young woman, he said, was so full of life. Now, after their first meeting, it took him a few months to actually ask her out on a date, but eventually he did, and later plucked up the courage to ask for her hand in marriage in 1965. Coleraine agreed, and they would stay together for the rest of his life, 55 years, even though, and I know Coleraine won't mind me saying, she said he got more like Victor Meldrew every day. Harry and Coleraine would have 4 children, Julie, Jane, Suzanne, and John Henry. Now, Coleraine was the gatekeeper. Nobody got an audience with Harry, and nobody got to speak to Harry until she vetted them. But when you got the okay, spending time with Harry was always cherished, always eventful, and certainly always entertaining. Yes, he could be stubborn, he could be thran, he could be direct. Yes, he could be opinionated and often not very diplomatic when probably saying nothing was the best thing to do. And yes, the conversations were normally on his terms and at his pace. But spending time with Harry was always an education, whether it was about football or whether it was simply about life.